If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today. This video Charlie Kirk uploaded just a few days ago, and the title intrigued me. Madman, angry at everyone, gets owned in race debate. Now we know that Charlie Kirk is really great when it comes to the race topics, so let's see how this is gonna go. Also, remember last time we were told that Charlie Kirk made somebody really angry and like triggered a liberal, but then nobody got angry or triggered?
So I've been watching this for some 20 odd years, you know, just...
What?
Oh, ma'am, you've been doing it forever. Welcome to the First Amendment. I fought for it.
Sir, can you just stay focused on me?
Taxpayer-paid jacket?
Sir.
Thank you, I brought it overseas.
All right, sir, just ask me the question.
So what is it about conservatives and this whole racism thing? Like, you guys are always just saying that it's either not a thing or it's, you know, just not in any of the institutions or the...
Okay. Oh, brother. Okay, if you're gonna debate racism, especially if the guy is at the podium with the lights and the mic and you're just the little nobody in the audience, don't start your question with, what's with the conservatives and the, like, being racist thing? What's with the conservatives and the whole, like, racism thing, you know? Sounds like the setup for a joke. It does not sound like a legitimate political question.
The police department, but it seems that over the past 18 years, we've had several race riots, and the biggest one being in 2020. So it's like, how are we still denying segregation in a city where we can clearly see what neighborhoods are white, which ones are black, which ones are Latino,
Oh, no.
and we know how we got there.
Because those are not the conservative would argue that those are simply segregated by choice, right? Like, people are choosing to live in those neighborhoods. When I hear segregation, I'm thinking that it's forced, okay? I'm thinking this is the neighborhood for all the black people, this is the neighborhood for all the white people, and you don't have a choice. That's what I think most people think of when they think of segregation, not just large proportions of racial groups living in certain areas because that's where they're living. Like, that's not the same as segregation.
So it's like, what is it with conservatives and admitting that there's a problem and not addressing it? Because it seems like you guys want to be obsessed with, oh, the gender thing or the racism thing. And then you guys say, oh, it's not here, it's not a big problem. But why are millions of people rioting every couple years?
So let me ask you a question.
We can say that it's Democrats and shit, right?
Well, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
So what do you think is a bigger problem facing America?
Oh, boy.
Single fatherhood or racism?
Racism, by far. That's how
Can you
we
say
got
that?
Did he say single fatherhood? I think he meant single motherhood, right?
Facing America, single fatherhood or racism?
Yeah, I think he meant single motherhood. I think he was getting at there being a fatherlessness issue in the black community, which, by the way, the answer is both. You realize there's a fatherlessness issue in the black community because of systemic racism, right? Do you think that welfare policies had anything to do with disincentivizing a man being in the home? Conservatives talk about that a lot. Conservatives talk about that all the time, about how the liberals incentivized single mothers. We hear about that all the time. They believe in systemic racism in that regard. They believe that a policy was put in place that disproportionately negatively impacted black people. In this case, affected the father issue in the black community. That is because of racism. That is a downstream effect of racism, like the drug war and immense amounts of poverty contributing to poor education, etc. There's a whole slew of issues here that it all is a downstream effect of racism. So the answer is both.
Racism, by far, because racism gets people killed, not single fatherhood.
Well, no, a single motherhood. Let me be more specific. So single moms, their fathers leaving the home, you think is a bigger problem than racism?
No, sir. You're gonna have. I'm gonna repeat that one again for you. I think racism is a bigger problem than fathers being outside of the home. However, I do see fathers not being in the home is a problem.
Let's make sure we're defining our terms. How would you define racism then?
Racism is a system of oppression used by used by a certain group using prejudice, institutional power,
Got it.
and it's situated
Oh,
by
no.
the media, government, and all these other
So
institutions.
give me an example of
No.
one thing you as a black man cannot do that I as a white man can do in America.
Got you. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, right? I went to a DeSantis rally.
Okay, so this is a really bad faith question. Don't go down this route. What's something that you as a black person can't do that a white man can? That's not what we're talking about when we talk about systemic racism or inequality. And they know that. Charlie Kirk knows that. Charlie Kirk knows there's more to it. Charlie Kirk knows we're talking about subconscious bias or downstream negative effects of past racist policies. Kirk knows that the argument is not that black people are just like not allowed in certain stores because Jim Crow is still a thing or something. He knows that.
Got my ticket, all that good bullshit. Been to a million different, rallies of a kind.
And also
whether-
it's just an anecdote, so it's easy to be like, okay, whatever, I don't believe you. Thanks anyway for wasting our time, haha. Like, it's easy to just dismiss that. Instead, you can say, it's not so much about what white people can do that black people can't. It's that when you look at the statistics and the way that police target black people, for example, we know that black people get the short end of the stick there. Black people face disproportionate difficulties, and minority groups tend to face difficulties sometimes because of their status as a minority. White people, on the other hand, can face difficulties, they can face financial hardships, they can face all kinds of problems, but very rarely do white people face issues because they are white. Now, black people aren't facing issues because they're black, rather because of the situation that black people have disproportionately been put into.
whether, I was a conservative at the time or whether I was a liberal, right? I know that as a black person, I am far more likely to be arrested for expressing my view, whether I am a conservative or a liberal. And I've done it on both sides. And, oh, yes, I was. I was
Well,
arrested.
Well, what? I'm sorry, but like, the law protects people having the freedom of speech. If you are saying you're getting arrested for speaking and it's not disturbing the peace or something else, some other legal thing they got you on, then there would be a massive problem that you could be bringing attention to.
Oh, yes, I was. I was
Well,
arrested.
you were probably being a
And
jerk. That's why you were
actually,
arrested,
and
not
that's the
because of
best part.
color
And
of
that's the
your
best
skin.
part, right? That's the best part. I wasn't even.
Also, that's a stupid response on Charlie Kirk's part, because you're not supposed to get arrested for being a jerk with your speech. I thought that's what conservatives were all obsessed about, that we want to be able to say the facts even when it hurts the feelings. I thought the whole thing that they're obsessed about is losing their free speech, and then they won't be able to be a jerk to trans people or something.
being a jerk. And the courts even found
so
our beloved courts.
Let me make sure I understand
who
this.
we love
So you
them.
think the bigger problem than fathers not being in the home is a abstract conspiracy theory that you have that hecklers and jerks at political events are arrested because of the color of their skin? That's the best definition
I'm
of
saying,
institutional racism.
no,
you have?
that's not my definition on racism. I
Well,
did
no,
tell
give
you
me an
what my
example
definition
of something a white
Okay, Kirk, you asked a minute ago for a specific personal example, not just a broad example.
man like me can do that a black man like you can't do. Because guess
Oh,
what?
for one-
if I showed
for
up
one-
at a DeSantis event and
sure.
started heckling, I'd be
Sure.
kicked out and arrested.
No, you would not. No, you. In fact,
Well,
I even have evidence.
You know how
of
I
that.
know that's true?
You wanna
Most
know-
of the
what, do you
hecklers
wanna know
are
how
these
I know it's
white
true?
suburban kids
I have
from
hundreds
Highland
of-
Park, and they're arrested a lot more, actually, when you see the mugshots. Yeah.
Oh, so white kids are
The mug shots. That's his. I looked through all the mug shots and I've determined that more of them were white people. Is this okay?
arrested a lot more. Could
Well-
that possibly be? Could that possibly be?
talk
And I'm
into the
just-
mic?
And I'm just guessing here. Could it possibly be that white people are arrested more because you have a higher population and therefore by proximity you are more like, because it's math, it's basic math. I know we hate math. I know we hate it, but I passed
Well,
it.
okay.
Unlike y'all.
So let me ask you a question. How does
I like how
racism
he's just flaming the audience. I passed math, unlike y'all. Pff,
contribute to black on black crime in Chicago? How is
Oh,
white
fuck,
people to blame for that?
What? So if you look at the areas in Chicago and other areas that are really, really overrun by gang violence and whatnot, you'll see that those areas were actually redlined in the past. Because they were redlined, those families were unable to really build much generational wealth. There was a lack of investment in the local economy, and as a result, the people living there suffered financially, significantly. As a result of them being poor, their schools received shitty-ass funding, meaning that everyone in the area area now is poor educated when it comes to, because all their schools were shittier. All of this, poverty, bad education, fatherlessness, all of this contributes to crime. We know, for example, that poverty is one of the strongest predictors of criminality. So, if you have disproportionate rates of poverty in the areas that you have disproportionate rates of crime, it would stand to reason that a lot of that poverty is there for a reason. And if you do a little bit of digging, you'll find that a lot of these areas were redlined. A lot of these areas, banks had marked with red lines to say, oh, there's a lot of black people in that area. We're not going to give a loan for a house over there. We are not going to allow investment in this area. And then that compounds with the drug war. And suddenly now you have more police in these areas that are already disproportionately criminal because of the disproportionate rates of crime, or excuse me, disproportionate rates of poverty. And then now you have a disproportionate rate of black people getting locked up for drug use, even though white people are using drugs at roughly the same rate. Because there's more police there, because of the poverty, because of the crime, because of the redlining. So yes, all of this is a downstream effect of racism. All of it.
Oh, actually, matter of fact, that's actually a whole other issue. So let's talk about, so you want to talk about intracommunal violence as it pertains to
so what does the white man have to do with that?
Oh, and that's a great thing. I love the red herring that you threw in there.
No, it's
yes,
just-
because,
it's a question.
hey, intracommunal violence is proximal, right? So when we have segregation and we got races sitting in one area and you got another race in another area. Now, we never ask white people, why is white on white crime so high with white people, and never, but instead we focus on black people.
Yeah, so out of the 530 murders in Chicago of the last year, how many were black on black crime?
Hey,
Why are you focusing on Chicago? I like how Kirk arbitrarily chose Chicago, which he knows is a disproportionate black area, to then be like, well, look at the crime rates. Highest murder rate. Baltimore, New Orleans. I don't know if this is a predominantly black area or not. Regardless, though, why is he just like randomly picking Chicago? What, like he's being so dishonest with that.
Looking. But you know what I
Yeah,
do know?
well
But
over
you know, hey,
420 of them were black on black gang-related crimes.
Sure.
How is
Gang related. I wonder why areas where there have been really bad relations with the police would have disproportionate rates of gangs.
that
Sure.
racism to blame for that?
Let's talk. So now, are we going to talk about over-policing?
Okay, so the problem, this guy's asking for too much clarification. He can just roll with it, okay? How is that the fault of racism? Okay, here's how systemic racism and racist poverty or racist policies still affect black people today. Boom, there's your argument.
I'm sorry, sir. You're kind of
Would you like to-
demonstrating you can't answer the question.
Would you like to talk about? I mean, we can talk about it. We can.
Okay.
Are you ready to address it, though?
Well-
are you ready to address it? Are you
Yeah.
ready? Because we can talk about black on black crime, but we need to talk about it as it pertains. We need to. Okay, let's talk about it, sis. I'm ready to talk about it.
All right, hold on. So
I'm ready
let
to
me
talk
just
about it.
let me just
I'm ready
narrow
to
this
talk
down.
about
So let me just say this,
All right,
okay?
all right.
So
What's
if
up?
you were to rank the 100 biggest problems in America,
Yeah.
the fact that I know we're not a racist country is the best example you have. Is
Okay,
some
so you
abstract
know we're not a
story of you
racist
getting
country
kicked
based
out of a
on what?
DeSantis rally. If we were a racist country, you'd say, Charlie, I can't go in a convenience store. Charlie, I can't go into school. No, we actually live in such
So
amazing.
his version of racism, conservatives do this a lot. Their bar for racism is so high that it would never reach that point. Okay, Charlie Kirk's bar for racism is literally the KKK lynching black people in front of him while screaming the N-word. If anything less than that happens, then he's going to just assume that maybe it wasn't racism.
If we're not
decent
if we're not
country
racist-
that whoa.
Don't.
Let's not do that, okay?
All I did.
All right.
All I did was speak.
You're trying to pull it
Oh,
out of my
no.
Mostly peaceful, everybody. Mostly peaceful,
I
okay?
didn't lay hands on.
That is literally racist in and of itself. Mostly peaceful? Okay, I thought that was for BLM. Are you just lumping all black people in now with BLM? Mostly peaceful? Are you saying black people were saying? Mostly peaceful. Look at, here's another uppity black. That's literally what it sounds like he's saying right now.
On you. I didn't lay hands on
All
you. I
right.
got witnesses. I did not touch you. No.
All right.
I touched the mic.
We're going to wrap this one
Don't
up,
play.
but let me just
Anyway.
say this.
We got racism we got racism all over the U.S. We just had a race riot 3 years
Okay,
ago.
so let's
in
talk
20
Having a race riot is not evidence that there is actually racism, by the way. That's just such a shitty argument. Charlie Kirk is being incredibly bad faith and disingenuous as usual. But this guy is not helping his arguments.
20.
Wait, hold on.
And,
So-
oh my God. And then we had all 50 states plus 18 countries. But don't worry, Alex.
Wait, so
right?
by
I'm not
race
laying no
riots,
hands
you
on
mean
them.
you mean
I used to
mass
wear the
looting
uniform
of
too.
big
I know
screen
how it works.
TVs? Let me tell you, it is not an argument in your favor that we're a racist country because blacks decide to start burning down Wendy's and stealing stuff.
Oh,
That's
no.
called
Actually,
criminality.
it is.
Blacks? I thought that this was like Antifa and the suburban white kids doing this too. See how quickly he does this? So we have BLM, mostly peaceful. Black people, mostly peaceful. Ha ha ha. Blacks bad. Like literally, he just went down the pipeline, man.
And
Because
the
you're not even,
majority
you're
of
not
black
even looking as
Americans
to why
found
it
the
happened.
looting
You're not
to
even
be
looking as to why it happened.
objectionable.
And that's cool. And that's cool. You know, we can definitely play, obtuse on the whole issue. Yeah, black people were burning it down. Why? Racism. Racism was a big issue, and we can pretend that it's not a big issue. But hey,
Yeah.
hey,
You can't just say it's happening because of racism. Oh, that's not evidence of racism. That could be evidence of people not understanding. It could be an.
if you don't want to, then that's just called being obtuse. And that's why I asked you. And that's why I asked you, why did you have such a big problem with talking about racism? You want
Well,
to claim that it's not there, and you can say
all right.
all you want,
So,
but that still doesn't prove. That
let
still
me
does
conclude.
not.
If you
That
want to
still does
talk
not
about
account for why
racism
we
that
have
could be
race
proven,
rights. So
let me
I
give you
guess
some
so.
examples of racism that could
guess.
be proven. How about affirmative action at this college that discriminates against Asian students and white students? How about affirmative action hiring practices?
Why not? Why is affirmative action even in that place to begin with? Right? Isn't affirmative action? Couldn't you argue that it's too far to the other side to try to compensate for a problem that was already there? Charlie?
The federal government. We are such a decent, non-racist country. The best example that he has is to show that he was mistreated. And if he acted like this at the DeSantis event, I can see why he was kicked out of the DeSantis event.
Yeah, but being kicked out for your speech is not nearly the same as being arrested for that speech, Charlie. And I think that you would be very willing to make that distinguishment if this was something involving conservatives. But okay, wow. Disliking that one. Damn, Charlie, you're cringe. But unfortunately, that guy was kind of cringe too.